Let's go home, horse. Standing on top of Mount Kilimanjaro, watching the sunrise, the wind in my hair.
Pippi Longstocking. Oh my goodness, it's been decades since the last time I saw Pippi Longstocking. Seriously, I never thought these reviews would have me watching a nostalgic cartoon from Canada, let alone one that was present during my childhood. Okay, I'll confess that I've never read any of the original books by Astrid Lindgren or seen the previous adaptations. However, as a Canadian, I remember watching the animated series back in the late 1990s when it was on Teletoon. Admittedly, my memory with Pippi is pretty foggy because, again, I haven't seen this since it was fresh on TV, and it wasn't among my most cherished shows at the time. But I recall that it's about the whimsical adventures of an eccentric red-haired girl with a pet monkey going around this little town. But you know what's funny? I recall watching the show, but not the movie itself, even though it also serves as the pilot for the series. Unless it aired on TV afterwards and I never realized it. But like I said, too far to fully remember. Either way, this is going to be a new experience for me where I'll be watching the film as is, now as an adult. So now that we're going into Villa Villacula, will watching this movie help answer your question to what shall you do today? Or will it need a new recipe for life? Let's find out. The story. As the movie begins at sea, it establishes how Pippi ended up living alone with her pet monkey, Mr. Nilsson, and her horse named Horse. Oh yeah, I forgot that there was a horse literally named Horse in this. After going through a rough storm that took her father overboard, the young world traveler returns to her house called the Villa Villacula and interacts with the townsfolk in her own lively way, all while waiting for her dad to be saved and come back home.
And don't you worry about me. I can look after myself.
After watching this, I now find it to be ironic that the theme song for both the feature and the series to be What Shall I Do Today? Which I get that it's meant to represent Pippi's free spirit, but the real irony is that if you ask the movie this question, it will have absolutely no idea how to answer that.
This is impossible.
It is? What?
The biggest problem with this Pippi Longstocking movie is that it has no story. Once Pippi settles in her house, it doesn't really know what else to do with itself. There's no structure to the narrative, no problem that needs to be solved, no conflict that is a challenge to the protagonist. It's just a bunch of random events that barely connect with each other that fail to deliver an outcome that feels like it meant something. At the most, I did get a sense that it wanted to be like Mary Poppins by being about this extraordinary protagonist who came in to liven up this little town, but it does next to nothing to show how Pippi is more special compared to the other kids. The only time when it does make good use of that concept is during the circus scene, and that's it. The rest is just the girl causing chaos wherever she goes.
1, 2, 5, 10, 15.
And I know that some may argue that the feature does have conflicts, like with Mrs. Priscillius threatening to put Pippi in a children's home, and the criminals trying to steal her gold. But the issue there is that the film doesn't make them feel like they would be a real challenge, especially for Pippi. With her carefree and optimistic attitude, the problems feel like they solve themselves while the movie is left with no danger that could affect her outlook on life. Seriously, even at the start of the film, after witnessing her dad get washed away in the middle of the ocean during a storm and almost lost her own life trying to save him, her response to all that was, don't worry about it, he's gonna be alright. I'm gonna go chill at my place until he comes back.
It's okay, Friedolf. Papa won't drown, not him.
There are also moments when some characters confront her own rebellious behavior, and that could have spiced up the feature to go deep into her character and give Pippi an arc to reflect upon the pros and cons of her own personality. But again, the movie does nothing with that because there's no actual consequence to her behavior. Even if some scold her for being reckless, it's not like they do anything about it. If anything, she just goes back into her house, does her own thing, and then returns to wreak havoc the next day. There's no substance to be found here because there's nothing for Pippi or anyone to learn other than to brace yourself if you ever cross paths with a destructive red-haired kid.
Whee! What did the teacher say, Pippi? I think she liked me.
Also, there is something that can be easily forgettable about this, and that is the fact that it's a comedy. There are several times when it tries to be funny, but just like the story, the sense of timing is completely absent here. With how they're executed, the gags are the kind that, after they're done, you only get a realization a few seconds later that they're supposed to be jokes and they were meant to make you laugh. They're not just bad. These gags are so horribly done that they're not even recognizable as jokes at first.
You'll be hearing from me. I'll be back.
And when you take account of all this, what I consider to be the worst part is how, despite its running time, this movie feels long. With the credits, this is just a 77-minute film, to which even by animated movie standards, that's relatively short. But because the feature offers next to nothing of value, no plot to actually follow, no goal to achieve, and no danger to conquer, all it does is feel like it drags on. It's one thing for a feature to be dull and feel like it's taking forever, but when it's a movie that's only over an hour long doing so, that's a clear sign that it fails to be a piece of entertainment.
I should have known. I should have stayed at sea. I guess I'll become a pirate after all.
I'm sure there can be a way to turn the Pippi books into a fun feature. The materials are clearly there, but this movie uses none of that potential. Maybe some can argue that it's because of how it's also meant to be the pilot for the show and just wants to mainly establish how that is going to be, but there's nothing that it does to be engaging for either itself or the series. All it presents is how Pippi does weird stuff in this small town, and that's it. That's why I'll be giving the story a 2 out of 10. It could have done something to make an interesting Pippi Longstocking movie. It's just that it chose to do nothing. The animation. Maybe it's not the best adaptation of the books, but this is, however, a monumental moment for the franchise as the first animated adaptation of Pippi Longstocking. Something that not even Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata themselves were able to accomplish. Seriously, they tried in the 1970s to make an animated series out of it, but it ultimately didn't work out. But when that responsibility was given to Nelvana, I'd say that it's fine. Not the most captivating animation you'll find, but for what it is as an animated feature, the work done in this is actually not bad.
Put me down!
Of course, it is important to note that even if this was first released in theaters, this version of Pippi is primarily meant to be for television, and as such, there are some factors that do make that apparent. I'll get my criticisms out first by saying that the quality can fluctuate throughout the feature. There are times when it's noticeable that either the budget was running out, or the team had to rush through the scenes where some parts can be missing, or the movements can be more limited than usual.
We have several forms for nuisances. Oh, here we go.
Enough! She's living alone, unsupervised.
But then there are moments when it could go extra and the scenes can look impressive. This is especially the case during the musical numbers where there is more choreography to play with. They can get creative with the backgrounds and scenarios. There is use of lighting and shadows that make the shots more dynamic. And the cinematography shows off some new tricks. When the movie has an idea of what it wants to do with the characters for a particular moment, that's when the animation puts in more effort and it can actually look nice at times.
You have it. That's the tempo, if you please, Mr. Bloom, now. 2, 3, and back.
When it comes to the other elements in general, I'd say that they could be pretty good. Again, not amazing, even by the standards of when it came out, but it does have a nice aesthetic. The designs are more Disney-esque, and while not the most original style, the characters look alright, and it does capture the feel of a quaint European town, complete with nicely painted backgrounds that make both the village and Villa Villacula feel hospitable, and the use of colors are natural and cool, where it's mainly the plant life that gives the look more vibrancy. In a way, the style is reminiscent to Studio Ghibli films like The Secret World of Arrietty. Maybe the craftsmanship isn't on par to that, but it does capture that calming environment of being in a simple town that is surrounded by nature.
But I'll come. I'll try anything once.
I'll admit that this is not among the most impressive animation of the 1990s, or the most original. At worst, this is the run-of-the-mill visuals that you'd expect from a movie that would immediately become a show at the time. But in regards to Pippi Longstocking, this is the best thing that the movie can offer, and I acknowledge that there is some nice work put into it. At its best, it can be visually fun, liven up the musical numbers, and capture the aesthetic of the book's setting. I know that there isn't a lot that I talked about here, but there really isn't much to say about this other than it looks fine. That's why I'll be giving the animation a 7 out of 10. For Pippi's first animated adventure, at least she was able to make this visually as strong as her. The characters. Well, if the movie doesn't bother to have a story, what does that leave the characters with? Yes, I am aware that at least some of them come from the book, but even if they're given a trait or an archetype, their purpose doesn't feel like they matter when the feature doesn't really know what to do with them, making their roles come out flat at best and completely pointless at worst. It doesn't help either when the voice acting is generally pretty rough, especially with the kids. I don't feel good saying this, but their performances can be bad.
No way, that place has been empty since we moved here.
Well, I sure wish somebody would move in.
Come on, take your shot.
And this hokey and unnatural kind of acting can be found all over the feature. Now, I'm not saying that these people are terrible at their jobs. There are some notably talented Canadian actors here like Dave Thomas, Gordon Pinsent, and Catherine O'Hara. I know they can do better than this and have proven so both on camera and in voiceover, which is why I blame the directing for how the voice acting came out like what you'd stereotypically expect from a cartoon. It's more about being annoyingly exaggerated than to give the characters a genuine personality.
I have a matter of grave civic danger to report.
Oh, my.
There's a little girl named Pippi.
Speaking of the personalities, let's start talking about them, beginning with Pippi Longstocking herself. She is noted to be a unique girl thanks to her experience as a world traveler and her surprising super strength. However, the catch with her is that she doesn't know how to adapt to her environment, and the most that she has as company is Mr. Nilsson and Horse, resulting in Pippi to be naively extroverted wherever she goes.
Anyway, for that matter, let me tell you that in Egypt, everybody walks backwards, and nobody thinks it's the least bit strange.
I'll say that I could see how Pippi can be a fun protagonist to adapt, and whatever issues she may have here isn't because of who she is. In fact, optimistic animated characters like Longstocking can have a record of being beloved and enjoyable to watch. There are ways that you can make Pippi great as an extraordinary being who could do so much more than what you'd expect from a kid, but this movie does not highlight that well. It doesn't make the most out of who she is and what she can do. As I mentioned before, I like the circus scene because it plays with her special abilities and her naivete, but that's the only time in the film where it knows how to use it in a way that feels whimsical. For the most part, she's just shown as an overly happy girl who doesn't realize the trouble she causes along her path, and faces no consequence for anything she does. In a way, she just exists to be everyone else's problem.
Wait!
Here she comes again. Let's run for it.
Then you have Tommy and Annika, the kids who live next door who befriends Pippi. I get that they're like the Jane and Michael of the picture, playing as the avatars who experience the girl's attitude firsthand along with the audience. However, they're not in the movie much to make the friendship feel like it even matters. It's like their presence is only because they were in the books, so they might as well be in here too.
Come on in.
No thanks.
We have to go to school.
Then there's Mrs. Priscillius, the evil social worker who turned this movie into a dangerous drinking game for anyone who dares try to take a shot every time she suggests that Pippi belongs in a children's home.
We must find you a place in a children's home. You are going to a proper children's home. That urchin has to be put under supervision in the children's home. Your husbands were supposed to take her to the children's home. Do you see what I mean? That the child belongs in a children's home.
All right, I get it!
And the criminals, Thunder Carlson and Bloom, who broke out of prison to go and try to steal Pippi's gold, but their roles are nothing more than being just a pair of cartoon villains who get the receiving end of Pippi's fun-loving attitude.
You can't dance with all that weight. Come on, faster.
Like I said before, the materials are there to create a whimsically engaging adventure, and these are the kind of characters who can make this something enjoyable. Unfortunately, with the way that the film is structured, what they could do here is very limited, where they could be nothing more than be one-dimensional. Top that with unpleasant voice acting throughout, and this is just an all-around bad cast who are, at best, forgettable. I think I may go with another 2 out of 10 for the characters. Even for someone not familiar with the source material, these characters deserve to be handled better than this. The songs. Well, this is an animated feature from the 1990s, so it's pretty much mandatory that it has to also be a musical. And when it comes to these songs, I think they're the better parts of the feature, but considering the problems it has, that's not saying much. I feel like they come with mixed results with not just how the numbers themselves are, but also how they are handled. On one hand, all of the musical numbers are exclusively in the first 33 minutes of the film. It will start off by jumping into one song after another, but once Pippi and the kids are out of school, the musical aspect is over. As if the movie is already fed up with putting on a show.
You know what I really want, Thunder Carlson?
You're not gonna sing, are you, Bloom?
And from there, its purpose as a musical doesn't feel genuine. It's as if it chose to be that because it was bandwagoning on the trend that animated features were doing at the time. Not saying that Pippi Longstocking should never be a musical, but I have questioned at times why this version had to be a musical other than because that's what 90s animated movies were doing.
I'm sure you meant to, Pippi. Now run along and remember, when you come to school, you must behave.
With that said, that doesn't mean that it didn't try. When the songs are on, they can be fine. Maybe the lyrics could use a bit of work, since there are times when they don't flow well or sound weird as if they had difficulties during their development, but the melodies are catchy and the singers are solid as well. I may not think Melissa Antro's performance as Pippi was great, but I can understand how she got the role with her musical talent.
Come follow me, you will see.
As for the songs themselves, it begins with What Shall I Do Today, which highlights her adventures from around the world and how that shaped who she is to be always excited to see what the next day will bring.
What shall I do today?
What shall she do today?
What shall I do today?
What shall she do?
Then there's Hey Ho, I'm Pippi, where its function is pretty much the same as the last song as it describes who Pippi is, but the tone here is more chipper than One with Wonder.
Hey ho, I'm Pippi, Pippi I away, home and I'm happy as can be.
Then you have Recipe for Life, where Pippi presents her kind of hospitality to Tommy and Annika as she makes pancakes for them.
All you do is follow.
All we do is follow.
All you do is follow this recipe for life.
Then it's A Bowler and a New Gold Tooth, a duet from Thunder Carlson and Bloom where they dream about having the rich life.
And host the
When
fun
they
from
see
Salon's
me
ball. I'll
flashing
sport my
my
modest little
gold
English bowler hat.
Tooth.
And finally, there's Plutification, where Pippi challenges the teacher on how school should function.
Plutification, multiplication's all the same to me. 2 times 2 times 3 times 4 equals ABC.
It's also worth noting that the teacher in the film is played by Carol Pope, and I can't help but feel like that was a deliberate choice. It's a very deep cut that only a few will get, but if you do, you'll realize that this movie is wild to get away with a rough trade reference like that.
It make me cream my jeans when she come my way. Oh.
By the way, this is just a side note, yet a bit related because it is about what we hear, but do you know what else is bad in this movie? The sound mixing. It can be distracting how some things are either too loud or too soft to the point that it can make no sense. There are even times when it can often feel absent or don't even match what's going on, making scenes that should feel chaotic or action-packed feel strangely empty.
Pippi, please let go of Mrs. Priscillius.
But back to the main subject, while the songs themselves are not great, maybe even debatable if they are good, the main reason why they are more of a highlight of the feature is because there's nothing else going on. At least when the characters do sing, there is something happening, even if it's just during the first half. By this movie's standards, there was more effort put in here than on some of the other elements, and that's why I'm going with a 6 out of 10 for the songs. It may not be a strong soundtrack on its own, but the best I could say is that it's better than nothing. Unfortunately, the Canadian nostalgia didn't do much to help me enjoy this movie. The 1997 adaptation of Pippi Longstocking is the closest that we got to an animated feature about nothing. It takes the iconic character by Astrid Lindgren and doesn't do anything to make her whimsical adventure feel fun or worth watching, resulting in a film that can make 77 minutes feel tediously long. As much as it may deliver some quality, like the animation could look nice, and the songs are okay at best, it has no story to work with, no understanding of how comedy works, underwhelming voice acting, and uninterestingly flat characters. Even if it's meant to establish what to expect from the series, the movie fails to sell on the idea that we should spend more time with this version of Pippi Longstocking. Personally, the only reason why I'd recommend this movie is if you're doing research on either Pippi or Astrid Lindgren. If you want to look into the different ways on how Pippi Longstocking was adapted, this should be included as the first animated version. But as a movie itself, I recommend looking elsewhere if you want something enjoyable. But if you find this review to be enjoyable, then give this a like and come subscribe to my channel. I can help answer what shall you do today with my collection of videos that you can explore. I was excited at first to revisit Pippi Longstocking, but I feel like this reminded me of why I don't have much memory of it. And that's why I'm giving it the Animat seal of garbage. There is not enough gold in that treasure chest to make me want to watch this again. Hey guys, this is Animat, and I want to start things off by giving out a huge thanks to Tom Jackson, whose amazing support on Patreon allowed him to get some amazing rewards, including this one, where he got to ask me to review Pippi Longstocking. And well, as you could tell from the review, I did not like the movie. unfortunately. And it's kind of sad as well, because when he first requested me to do this movie, I kind of got excited because it's not every day that I would go and watch a nostalgic movie. But not just that, but something from my past that is distinctively Canadian with Pippi Longstocking. Like I said before, I haven't seen this thing since it was fresh on Teletoon back in the late 1990s. So in that regards, I was curious to go and re-experience how this movie is going to be and revisit these characters. And there were a few things that I do recall, not just with Pippi Longstocking, but also with Mr. Nielsen, and also the two comedic thieves and stuff like that. But after re-experiencing it now as an adult and with a more critical eye, yeah, honestly, that did not work out as well as I thought, or at least in terms of the movie. Maybe the show is a lot better, but with the feature itself, yeah, it did not work out for me. But I will say, though, I am open to the idea that maybe it's just me, and maybe a big part to why I didn't like it is because I'm not familiar with the original source material. Like outside of the cartoon itself, I've never read any of the original books or have seen any of the other adaptations. I pretty much kind of came in like a newcomer to this. So in that regards, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a scenario that someone who is more familiar with the original source material might actually like this more than I did, and they could go and determine how this version would go and treat the original source material like the books or maybe even the other adaptations, and how did that do compared to the other versions of Pippi Longstocking. So I'll even say right now, if you are more familiar with Pippi Longstocking, like if you know more of the original books or the other adaptations, or maybe you got a fresher memory of the animated series, let me know what you think, actually. And on top of that, I'll even say right now that if you want to go and see this movie, it's actually easy to find because it's actually uploaded for free on YouTube. All you have to do is just write down Pippi Longstocking 1997, and there's a good chance you'll actually find it in its entirety. Just go and click on it, and you'll just see the film right there. So, yeah, like I said, if you know more Pippi Longstocking than me, I would like to know what you think. But with that said and done, now it is time that we shall go and move on from Pippi Longstocking, and we shall go and find out what the next review is from the animation hat. And by the way, before I go and pick the next review, I just want to go and say that if you would like to be like Tom Jackson and you want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards, including but not limited to seeing my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and that I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. And so, with that said, let's go and check out what am I going to pick now. What is it that I'm going to select? Oh, and I did get one. Okay, good. And so the next review shall be... let's see, open up properly. And, what's this? Okay. Oh, this is going to be an interesting one. I've heard of a variety of things about this movie in particular, but I will say, I've talked about animation history quite a bit, especially with Animation Look Back, but I don't think I've had a moment where I actually talked about this character in particular. Because I believe with this movie, this came out like years, even decades after this character became a star, but we might as well go and open up that magical suitcase to go and discuss about one of the first major cartoon stars.
I'm sorry to hear that, Pippi, but what makes me even more sorry is that you can't behave properly.